Hi friends, Geo here. Welcome back to my channel and my particular style of soft-spoken ASMR. I write gay fiction for fun and present it here. This is the final part of the Forbidden series. The previous parts are called Forbidden Need and Forbidden Desire. Mark is a gay artist trying to earn his master's degree, and he teaches the basic painting classes. Phil, also a gay artist, is in that class. They've grown close, maybe even too close. Mark had an interview for a summer teaching job, but he didn't have the types of paintings and drawings they were looking for. We closed up last session with the two of them painting each other from life. The final interview for the job is today. A special thank you to Anonymous for suggesting this story. We start our story 2 days after the end of Forbidden Desire. Thursday came too soon, and Phil came to the grad studio before my morning class. "Good luck, sexy," he said. He wore a pair of gray khaki shorts, sandals, and a black t-shirt of a band called Jumping Pyros, with the sleeves torn off. His shoulder-length hair hung free. I couldn't stop smiling. Neither could he. Brandon was there, fighting once again with the barbed wire. He had 2 band-aids on every finger and 3 on his left thumb and a cut on his cheek. Misha stood at her desk, wearing some kind of pastel yellow low-cut dress with spaghetti straps and a thin gold chain around her neck. She had a file folder with papers in it and held her thumb drive. Maybe slacks and a nice shirt were too casual. I should have dressed up, but I still had to teach today. As Misha left the room with the packet of papers and the thumb drive, a strange, triumphant smirk on her face, she yelled back, "Go home before you embarrass yourself, Mr. Boring. The best woman has already won." "Mark's paintings are better than yours," Phil said. "What does a lowly undergraduate know about art? Your boring boyfriend has lost," Misha sneered. Once the door closed, I turned to Brandon, a little confused. The dean's office never mentioned any computer files. Why is Misha bringing the thumb drive? Mark. Someday you'll grow up and join the 21st century. It's a digital portfolio. I think most of us have one, Brandon said. I don't, and they liked my work, I said. How many paintings can you take with you? Or drawings? A dozen? Misha has hundreds on that baby. Maybe everything she's ever made, Brandon said. I do too, and it goes clear back to middle school. Do I feel inadequate? I said, but only a little of it was sarcasm. Who kept their crap from middle school? Was I supposed to? It doesn't matter, Phil said, and gave me a kiss for luck. In front of Brandon. Shit. I looked at Brandon. He knew that Phil was in my class. He knew that kissing a student was against the rules. I held my breath. Brandon shrugged and sucked his bleeding thumb. Don't let the dean see that. Pass me the band-aids. I can't believe I cut myself again. Phil walked me to class and once again wished me luck. We agreed to meet about 12 o'clock for lunch, and I would tell him what happened at the interview. And when no one was looking, we shared a very quick kiss. My morning class was oil painting 1, the same class Phil had taken last semester. It was business as usual for a half an hour, but then the dean walked in and wandered around my 40 students. He stared at my diagrams on the whiteboard, taking pictures with his phone, and made sure he checked on every student's painting. My skin crawled, and a bad case of nerves flooded every cell in my body. The dean stayed for 10 minutes, never speaking to me, but had spoken to almost every student and examined their work. I kept moving from student to student, helping each in turn. It was my job. Logically, the dean had every right to visit my class. He wouldn't consider hiring somebody he hadn't observed. I thought I could relax once he left, but his visit only made the anxiety worse. Once class ended, I took my portfolio and the painting of Phil up to the conference room by the dean's office. The secretary said, "It will be just a minute. May I get you a cup of coffee or a bottle of water? A nutrition bar?" "Coffee, please," I said. I waited a few minutes, staring at, but not seeing, the pictures on the walls and hoping the caffeine would keep me sharp. The conference room door opened. "I'll text you as soon as I find him," a middle-aged man in a business suit said, and walked out of the conference room. He didn't have a portfolio or a briefcase. If he had a thumb drive, he had tucked it away. He'd never been around the art department before. "How did it go?" I asked. "Tough crowd," he said. We nodded. I should have worn my suit. The secretary handed a couple of papers to the man and said to him, "Here's the information requested. According to the schedule, he's between classes. I checked the student center. A lot of kids go there for lunch." "And her schedule?" he asked. "I've already contacted her and rearranged for 11:30, the secretary said. "Mark." The associate dean stood at the conference room door. He didn't smile, but held his hand out so I could shake it. I did, but my hand was cold. "Thank you for coming. Let me help you with that," he said. He took my cardboard portfolio, while I carried in the painting and the papers. In the room were the same people as before: the dean of the art department, the associate dean of the registrar's office, the woman from HR, and Dr. Andrews. Dr. Andrews frowned when he saw me and leaned over to the dean and whispered something. I must have gotten paint on my shirt. Again. Do I have anything that doesn't have paint on it? The dean had a laptop open in front of him, and he typed a couple of notes. Dr. Eaton sat next to Dr. Andrews, and next to her was a man in a uniform that said Campus Security. Those were the 6 people the secretary had told me about when she had called. The secretary had never mentioned the 7th man, and I didn't recognize him. He wore a suit and didn't smile. When I walked around to shake everybody's hands and introduced myself, he stood and shook my hand, like all the others. His jacket opened slightly, enough to reveal a police badge on his belt. Why the police? What had they found on my background check? I'd never been arrested, never even gotten in trouble when I was younger. I only slept a couple of days back in high school, and I got detention for it. My parents had never been in trouble, and had even become citizens. This didn't make sense. Everybody had a strange, non-smiling, serious expression. Even Dr. Andrews. I should have dressed up. "A point of order. We will be recording this so we can review your answers later. Is that okay?" the woman from HR said. "I understand, ma'am, and I approve," I said. All 7 people ignored my cardboard portfolio and focused on the nude painting I had made of Phil. Only Dr. Eaton smiled. "It's good to see you, Mark. This is your new painting? I approve of the style and subject matter. It has a good sense of color and proportion. Look at the brushstrokes, at the energy, and it is of the caliber I would expect. You've shown us quite the improvement." "Thank you, ma'am. I painted it the other night, and it only took an hour," I said. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The carefully controlled looks on their faces, the stiff way they moved. These people were hiding something. "I appreciate the detail, and you painted it in only an hour?" the dean said. He glanced at the policeman and the security officer. "Yes, sir. The one takeaway from the other meeting was that my portfolio was low on figure drawings, so a friend posed for me, and I painted it the other night, and then he did one of me," I said. "How did Phil's turn out?" Dr. Eaton said. "Was it as detailed?" "It was, I don't want to answer that," I said, and blushed. Of course she recognized Phil. My nervousness broke the ice because even the dean chuckled. "Relax, Mark. You're not on trial." The painting went from person to person around the table. The policeman held it the longest, and then he took a picture of it and made some notes. "Only one student has hair like that. That's Phil Connors, all right," Dr. Andrews said, and deeply sighed. They all knew who Phil was, that he was my student. Was I about to lose my job? Was I about to lose my degree before I even got it? Campus security? The police? I had been dating a student. Phil. That wasn't a crime. We're both over 21. Had they figured out how close Phil and I had grown? Is something wrong? I asked. We have a few security-related issues, but we'll talk about that after your presentation, the campus security officer said. Security-related issues? I couldn't think of any time I had done anything wrong. That scared me, but they still wanted to interview me. Whatever they had found wasn't bad enough to cancel the interview. I hope. I explained my current lesson plans and syllabus and grading procedures. Then I spoke about the syllabus for summer semester. Dr. Andrews and Dr. Eaton read through it very carefully and wrote notes on their copies. The policeman's phone buzzed with an incoming text. He quickly replied. I was answering their questions when the conference room door opened behind me and the middle-aged man entered, leading Phil. As soon as the door closed, he took a seat next to the police officer. They whispered something I couldn't hear. Phil held the painting he had made of me the other night. Mark, what's going on? Phil asked. Please understand that this meeting is being recorded. Your name is Phil Connors? The police officer said. Yes, I am, Phil said, and glanced at me. I shrugged. Show us the painting, please, the police officer said. Phil laid it on the table, next to the one I had made of him. Yes, it was detailed. We both blushed. I want you to think carefully before you answer, and be completely honest. How would you characterize your relationship? The dean asked. I looked at Phil. He looked at me. They knew about us. My hands became cold and shook. They knew about me and Phil. It's not Phil's fault. Don't punish him. We had coffee and started dating, I said. We kissed, went on a couple of dates, and became boyfriends. Don't punish Mark, because I came to him because I was thinking of dropping out, and I needed someone to talk to, and he was the only person I could relate with because everyone around here is so mean, and they never take the time to get to know anybody. You've chosen the worst people to teach here, and Mark was the only nice person. Let me stop you, the associate dean said. Don't get mad at Phil. Don't kick him out. He's a great artist, but he needed a friend, I pleaded. If you have to blame someone, blame me. And it evolved into something beautiful, Dr. Eaton said. Mark, I think that's why your paintings improved. Can you think of anyone who doesn't like you? The second police officer said. Do you mean me, or Mark, or both of us? I'm just a normal student, Phil asked. I can't think of anyone, I said. What is this about? I want to show you two something, and I want your opinion, the dean said. The first police officer leaned forward, sliding both paintings to him. He took pictures of both paintings and pursed his lips, his eyes on me and Phil. The dean clicked a couple of buttons and spun the laptop around. It played a series of pictures. Pictures of me and Phil kissing in the grad room, of us holding hands, even a short video of a kiss in the hallway. Then another 10-second video, but we were kissing in the cafeteria this time. I hung my head, unable to look at anyone. Tears burned in my eyes. You're spying on us? You're stalking us with the security cameras? Phil yelled. That's wrong. That's so wrong. It's an invasion. Mark, your opinion? Dr. Eaton said. I'm sorry, I whispered. I know you expected better of me. Would you look again, please? The first police officer said. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and looked closer. The angle was wrong. It wasn't coming from the ceiling, but from behind us. A video played next. Phil undressing and sitting on the stool. I began painting his picture. The dean fast-forwarded the video to a point an hour in. I stripped and took a seat while a naked Phil painted me. The dean forwarded the video to the end. It showed Phil wrapping a condom in a paper towel and he shoved it deep into the trash can. We kissed before we got dressed and left the grad studio. The video ended. Something broke inside me. I knew what this meant. I locked the doors, and it was private. "This is sick," Phil yelled. "How dare you spy on us?" "For your information, we don't have cameras in the classrooms or the studios. It's too expensive," the campus security officer said. "We only have cameras in the halls and monitoring the exterior doors. You two were alone the other night." "Phil, look again. Check the angle," I said. I wanted to throw up. My world had ended. "Mark, if we were private, then who took the video? Nobody was there. A people? Somebody hiding in one of the closets? Who would be so perverted? Who do you think it was?" Phil shouted. "Sirs, ma'ams, we don't know anything about this." "Phil, let's figure out where they were," I said. I took some of the papers and used them to create a rough map on the table. "I take it this was made without your knowledge or consent?" the second police officer said. "It was private. Nobody was around. Of course we didn't know," Phil said. "Our easel was back here by my desk," I said, forcing myself calm. My stomach felt cold and turned to lead. My life was over. I ripped a small piece of paper and put it down. The 7 people watched us. I think they had already figured out what had happened. It was our turn. Phil ripped off another piece of paper and set it down. Brandon's desk was behind me. I kept worrying because I was getting close to his barbed wire. Have you seen his hands? That stuff is nasty, wicked sharp. I rewound the video, and both Phil and I looked close. "So that's what I look like. No wonder you fell in love with me," Phil said, winking at me. A couple of people chuckled. Dr. Eaton wiped an eye. "You're cute as ever," I said, paused the video, and looked at our little map. "It's from Misha's desk, maybe a little above. I never noticed a camera. Does she have one?" "Misha? Why? I can't figure out whether to be mad or embarrassed. It feels like some stranger is watching me in the shower through a peephole. I feel dirty," Phil said. I closed the laptop so we didn't have to see anymore. I took Phil's hand, and we stood shoulder to shoulder. There wasn't any point in hiding our relationship. "Sirs, ma'ams, how did you get this?" The associate dean slid the laptop back to himself, but didn't open it. "We received an email yesterday evening labeled, 'For your consideration.' We only opened it this morning." "It came from Misha, didn't it?" I said. Phil squeezed my hand. Nobody said anything. So I did. "I understand having a relationship with a student was wrong. I was lonely and stressed, and I needed to talk to somebody as much as Phil did. I ask that you only punish me, because I knew better, but I chose wrong." "No, Mark, you can't take the fall for this," Phil said. "You didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong, except help each other survive. These last weeks have been hell for both of us." I let go of Phil's hand and placed an arm around his shoulders. "Sirs, ma'ams, Phil's innocent. It's me that made a mistake, not him." The dean's phone buzzed, and he read a text. He texted a reply before speaking. "Mark, Phil, we'll continue this discussion in a few minutes. For now, please have a seat to the side of the room and remain silent. Our final appointment is here." I was about to gather up my papers, my portfolio, and the paintings when Dr. Andrews said, "We'll keep those for right now." The campus security officer took our 2 paintings and set them behind him. The dean set my unopened portfolio on a chair beside him. Phil and I took our seats, holding each other's hands. "I'm sorry," Phil whispered. The associate dean went to the door, opened it, and said, "Misha, thank you for coming. Where's your portfolio?" "Everything you want to see is right here," she said, holding up the thumb drive. As she stepped through the door, she rubbed her body against the associate dean, who took a step back. She blinked her eyes at him and gave a big smile. The secretary entered behind her, carrying 2 cups of coffee and 2 nutrition bars, and handed them to me and Phil. The campus security officer cleared his throat and said, "Misha, just so you know, we're recording this meeting, so we can review your answers later. Do you agree?" "Of course," Misha said. "Let's start with the syllabus of your current courses," Dr. Andrews said. Dr. Eaton gave us a small nod. Why did I feel so cold? Phil wrapped an arm around my shoulders, looking a little gray, and whispered, "What can we do?" I tried to give him a brave smile. "We still on for Maine?" "I love you," he whispered, and nodded. I think the dean heard us because he frowned. The police officer checked his notes and stared at us, then made more notes. Misha must not have seen us because she seemed to bounce into the room in her pastel yellow dress with the spaghetti straps. She had pulled it down a little so her cleavage showed. "She's not wearing a bra," Phil softly whispered. I took Phil's cold hand and nodded. He was right. Either Misha had not worn a bra earlier, or she had taken it off. She was playing to the straight men in the room. A look passed over Dr. Eaton's face that might have been disgust. Dr. Andrews stared, but not at Misha's eyes. "It's a pleasure to be here again. Let me show you why you'll choose me," she said, her voice bright and smiling. My stomach nodded. The butterflies in my stomach started to free-fall dive bomb. This woman had ruined my life because she wanted the job I had applied for. As Misha passed out her papers, she leaned forward, especially in front of the dean, letting the man get a view of her assets. I took a sip of coffee. Phil took a deep breath and his legs shook a little. Misha spent 10 minutes going through her presentation, all bubbly and saccharine smiles. She never turned around to notice us. Every couple of minutes, Phil laid his head on my shoulder. I ran my hand through his silky hair and pulled him as close as I could. I would protect him. "Now for your portfolio," the dean said. Misha brought out her thumb drive, and the dean opened up his laptop. He must have minimized the video of me and Phil, because Misha didn't react. It automatically scrolled through her pictures, but it was angled away from Phil and me, so we didn't get to see. Dr. Eaton scowled. "Your designs still look like wrapping paper. I need to see the original so I can examine the brushwork and pencil strokes." "Didn't you know? A thumb drive is more compact and easier to transport," Misha said. Her head rose a fraction, and something sharp was in her tone. "Let me remind you of what a portfolio is. It's a physical collection of 8 to 10 pieces that represent your best work related to the subject, not a collection of trash," Dr. Eaton said. "I don't know why you're on this committee. You never did like me," Misha said. "Let me see your life drawings," the campus security officer said. Misha opened a new file and spun the laptop to face him, bending low in front of him. "As you can see, I have a variety of pencil sketches, charcoal studies, and here's a couple I reworked with the airbrush." The campus security officer slid the laptop over to the police officer. The police officer touched a couple of buttons and removed the thumb drive. He sealed it in an envelope, tucked it in his pocket, and slid the laptop back to the campus security officer. They shared a look. Misha never noticed. "What's going on?" "I don't get a sense of your style," Dr. Eaton said. "Perhaps some examples would show you what I'm looking for. Does anyone have those 2 paintings we had here a few minutes ago? Those showed some talent. Didn't Mark and Phil leave them with us?" Misha suddenly stood taller. "Dr. Eaton, I have them right here." The campus security officer retrieved the 2 paintings and set them on the table. "Look at the life in those brushstrokes. These men have learned difficult life lessons, like trust and betrayal," Dr. Eaton said, glancing at me and Phil. "Indeed," the dean said. "Perhaps our guests would like to contribute to the discussion?" I stood, angry, afraid for my career, terrified for Phil. I had made mistakes, and I would accept the consequences. But Misha would not get Phil expelled. None of this should taint Phil. Phil stood by me, both of us holding hands, our cold hands. Phil's eyes had narrowed. I scowled. I guess my disgust was sneaking out. "Why don't you show her the other pictures?" I said. "I'm sure they're quite revealing as well." "Do you know how I feel? How we feel?" Phil shouted. "That night was private and special." "You ruined me because we were going after the same job?" I said. Misha turned around and saw us. The smile turned triumphant. "Mark, You fraternized with a student. It was my duty to show the dean what you were up to. It's not my fault the university will kick you out." Phil suddenly stared at me, his hand holding mine even tighter. "Oh no." "Especially if it removes competition," I yelled. "That's playing dirty." "I told you that the best woman got the job," Misha said. "You couldn't keep up." I didn't know what to say to that. I had lost the job. I was about to lose my reputation. I would never get my degree. I'd have to tell my family that I had dated one of my students and was kicked out of the university. The shame burned across my face, and I couldn't stop the tears. I turned to the dean. "Please, don't punish Phil because of me. Let him graduate. I know my mistakes will reflect back on the university, and I'm sorry. I'm willing to accept the consequences." "Mark," Dr. Andrews said, his eyes a little sad, "do you remember the conversation we had a few weeks ago? For the regular student, it's nothing more than a fun college fling. It's a lot more serious for a teacher, and it's worse for a grad student who is also teaching. You'll be suspended from all activities, including graduation and teaching, while the ethics board reviews your case. Because of the evidence brought to our attention, you will most likely be released from the university. I already told you what that means." Phil inhaled. His eyes moistened. There was something haunted about his eyes. "Yes, sir. I won't get my diploma, and I won't graduate. Believe me, it wasn't my intention to cause any problems. To prevent any more issues, I not only withdraw my application for the summer position, I also resign from the university. Please let me walk out of here with some dignity. I'll remove my things from the grad studio and be gone. Tell my students that they are great, but they deserve better than me. Phil, I will always love you, but it's not going to work. You need someone you can be proud of." Phil stared at me, eyebrows lowering. He slightly shook his head. I didn't know. The interview committee didn't move. They all had stern faces. The police officer made notes. Misha gave a weird half-smile and said, "I win. The job is mine, Mr. Boring. I don't know why you thought you had a chance. Your work is boring, boring, boring." I had a few words I could call her, but I still had some pride. I walked to the door and opened it. "Mark, no!" Phil grabbed my hand and swore, "You can't leave. You can't resign. They can't fire you. You are the only person in this building who cares about the students. Nobody else on this faculty does. Nobody in this room does. Only you." "It's too late for me. Besides, professors who care get bitter and mean," I said, shaking my hand free. Dr. Eaton nodded and wiped an eye with her thumb. "Forget me and become a great artist," I said. Then I turned to the interviewing committee. "I had a good time working with everybody, especially my students. Please remember, they're people too. Be nice to them." "Please, say goodbye already," Misha sneered. "Would you get your boring face out of here? The dean and I need to talk about important things, like pay scales and class sizes." "It's not fair, Mark," Phil said. Phil stood there, stunned, as I walked out the door and let it close behind me. Even though the door was closed, I could still hear Phil explode at the interview committee. "If Misha is the kind of person you want working for you, then I hope you're happy. You're all just as bad as she is," Phil yelled. "It doesn't matter what you think. I got the job." "Anyone see where my thumb drive went?" Misha said. I should be furious, or I should become hysterical. At the very least, I should say some choice swear words. Instead, my heart and mind were numb. The secretary looked up as I walked past. "Would you double-check your contact information and we'll contact you within a week?" I shook my head. "They won't give me the job. Thanks for the coffee." One last stop and I would be gone. The grad studio. Except I couldn't get in. Brandon was outside the open door, sitting on a bench, applying another bandage. "What's going on?" I asked. Brandon shrugged. "I don't know, but it involves a search warrant. How'd the interview go?" "It didn't." "What are they looking for?" I asked. "Who knows? I hope they take the barbed wire. I'm sick of it, Brandon said. Some men wearing jackets that said crime scene on the back were in the room and not letting anybody in. I couldn't tell what they were looking for. The door was open and let me see the entire studio. It only took a second to stare at my desk. My old life. Misha's computer was on her desk, and an odd thing was attached to the wall behind it. It must be a wireless camera. One of the men in a jacket was taking photos of it, and another was taking pictures of my desk, of my painting of Cape Sodhurst. I had been so stupid. My canvases and my paintings and my art supplies meant nothing anymore. The art department could throw them away. Art had soured in my soul. I wouldn't paint again, and I think it would be a long time before I loved again. Today hurt too much. I walked away. "Where are you going?" Brandon called after me. "Boring me is going that way," I said, and pointed at the parking lot. I left the university with nothing. As I walked out to my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Phil. "Hey, sexy, the dean and the police want to talk to you. Where are you?" "I love you, but you deserve someone special. Goodbye." I texted back and ignored all the calls and texts that came my way for the next 15 minutes. I finally turned my phone off. I drove away from the ruins of my life. I couldn't go to my parents. I didn't go to my apartment. I filled up my gas tank and drove and drove and drove, sometimes in random directions, mostly east. The pain ripped through me and wouldn't stop, no matter how far I drove or how long. My phone gasped its out-of-power beep somewhere in New Mexico. My charger was back at the grad studio. Even if I wanted, I couldn't use my phone. My parents had sacrificed so much so I could start college. I had shamed them. Phil had trusted me and loved me, and I had shamed him. My students, once they learned, wouldn't trust me. I had shamed them. If they hadn't accepted my resignation, the university would have fired me and expelled me. I had shamed them. Dr. Andrews was my mentor teacher. I had shamed him. For some cosmic absurdity, Dr. Eaton had believed in me. I had shamed her. They were all better off with me far away. I'd never paint again. I hurt so much that I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I drove and drove and drove. When I ran out of gas, I filled up the tank and drove some more. I couldn't escape my shame. I lost track of time. I didn't know what day it was. I simply drove until I found the coast around Texas, and then I more or less followed the ocean. It took me 5 or 6 wrong turns, a couple of stops at cheap stores to buy t-shirts and shorts, a couple of stops for cheap groceries, a lot of time sitting on the road or random beaches staring at nothing, and a lot of money on gas before I wandered to Maine. Ash Hollow was 5,000 people during the tourist season. A coastal town that spread along the main road. It was barely more than a diner, a gas station, and a post office. Only a smudge on the map. The bowling alley that sat just behind the road made me smile. I guess I was still in civilization. The red-headed guy at the diner made me a jalapeno bomb burger and homemade fries dusted with salt and cayenne. An old woman picking up beer cans from the roadside pointed me in the right direction. The pace here was slower, not at all like the frantic atmosphere of Vegas or the hyperspeed of the art department. It gave me time to think, to realize how many people I had disappointed. I can't go back home. I'd never paint again. What's the point? Phil would never have been happy in Ash Hollow. Too small of a town. He was popular, a great artist. Face it, Phil would be happier with someone else. Not a boring man who painted boring paintings. No, Phil needed someone he could be proud of. I followed some old signs down a dirt road shrouded in trees and found Cape Sodhurst and its lighthouse. The tall lighthouse was connected to an old 2-story stone house and was surrounded by sunken gardens, a swimming pool, the beautiful rocky cliffs, and a cloud-tossed sky that stretched far into the Atlantic, to the infinite horizon. It only needed 2 people standing near the edge, holding hands, and it was my painting, the one Dr. Eaton actually liked. I'd never paint again. It was time to accept that I had destroyed my life and that my money was running out. I'd need to find a job. Tomorrow. Maybe the diner needed someone to bus tables, or the bowling alley needed someone to clean shoes. I parked in the bed and breakfast small parking lot, next to 6 cars, and wandered through the sunken gardens, glorious with reds and oranges and bright yellows. My mind automatically figured what paints I would need to match those colors. I walked past the gray stone house and looked in the kitchen windows. Somebody was baking an apple pie and a pot roast. I hadn't eaten for a while, and I could almost taste them. They smelled good. A calendar on the wall had squares crossed out, and let me know it had been 10 days since I'd resigned, since I'd turned off my phone, since I started wandering in my car, since I had last seen Phil. The semester had ended, and finals week had ended. Add one more failure to the list. I hadn't turned in my students' final grades. I had missed graduation. I had missed the art show. Next month's rent was already due. By now, my job at Bixby's was gone too. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I should check in. I had paid for it. But instead, I walked towards the cliff that I had painted a lifetime ago, with the 2 figures on the edge, me and Phil. Nobody stood there today. I'd never see Phil again, and I would never paint again. Washed up and a failure, and I'm only 25. I didn't remember the iron benches that looked out on the ocean. The empty iron benches. It should have been me and Phil sitting on them. I hope he forgets me, because I don't think I can forget him. I took a bench about 20 feet from the edge and stared at the horizon for hours. It must be beautiful up here right before the dawn. I'll get up early tomorrow morning and see. The ocean and sky made my soul ache. I relived that day. Phil and I had been so happy. Then Misha had shattered it. I'll never paint again. I hung my head and endured the savage, heartbreaking scream that was my heart. For the first time since I left Vegas, I let the tears out. I had destroyed my life, shamed the college, shamed my family, shamed Phil. He would forget me and would move on. I hope he finds somebody as special as he is. He's still young. My body, my soul, felt so old. I sobbed a moment before I wiped my cheeks. Would the bed and breakfast mind if I sat here for a couple of months? I had nowhere else to go. A couple of seagulls landed, fought over something, and flew away. Phil should have been here, watching the ocean with me, celebrating our graduation, celebrating our future. He'd graduate. I never would. I had lost everything and almost dragged the man I loved down with me. How could I hurt so much? "Forgive me, Phil," I whispered, and forced myself to breathe. I shut my eyes and silently said goodbye to the man I loved. I had destroyed my life by falling in love. I couldn't face my family, or my friends, or go back to college. The lonely wind blew cool off the ocean and rustled through the trees behind me. Gentle footsteps approached. A warm scent was on the soft breeze. Sandalwood. Somebody knelt behind me and wrapped their arms around me. His silky hair was smooth on my skin, and he lightly kissed my neck. A dream. I reached up and held his hand. Neither one of us moved or spoke for several minutes. "Hey, sexy. It's peaceful out here. Can I join you?" Phil said softly. It was another minute before I spoke. "How did you get here?" I asked. "Hopped a plane to Bangor right after graduation and rented a car. Ash Hollow was a little off the beaten track, but it wasn't hard to find. I've stayed here waiting for you, hoping you'd show up," Phil said. "It's a nice place. No wonder you painted it." He let go of me, walked around the bench, and sat next to me. He placed his cheek against mine, his tears wet and warm. His mouth grimaced as he fought the emotion. "You look good with a scruffy beard. Sexy, even. Everybody's freaking out. The police, your parents, the art department, your students." "Me? I wish you had called." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "It hurts too much." "It does for me, too." Phil gently rubbed my cheek dry and held my hand. "You didn't get the job." "I figured," I said. I couldn't look at Phil. "It probably won't make you feel any better, but Misha didn't get it either." Phil's voice quivered and wobbled. "Misha's in serious trouble. It was a misdemeanor to record us in an, undressed position, and it was another misdemeanor to follow us and take pictures of us kissing. It's called stalking. It was a felony to email it to the dean and try to discredit you so she could get the job. They expelled her, and now she's facing prison time, a big fine, and probably community service." I nodded, afraid to say anything because if I did, I'd break down. Phil stared at me, taking my hand, his eyes red and swollen. "Nobody blames you. Not the dean, not Andrews, not Eaton, not the police, not your family, and not me. I blame me. I'm not going back to Vegas," I managed to croak out. The emotion ripped through my chest. Phil tried to smile, but he couldn't. He tried to wipe his cheek dry, but as soon as he did, another tear fell. "I love you. We can spend some time here, as much as you need. It's beautiful here, but please, come home." "It doesn't matter. I had a lot of time to think. I've made mistakes. You deserve somebody who isn't boring, somebody who isn't a disgrace. You need somebody you can be proud of, and we both know it isn't me. All these years, I was fooling myself thinking I could be a painter, that I could find someone to love and love me. Go back to Vegas. Tell people whatever you want," I whispered, and tried to give Phil a small smile. "I'm no good for you, for anyone. Find someone better, someone you can be proud of." Phil sat back, looked at me, and scowled. "You're not the man I fell in love with." I was too ashamed of myself to meet his gaze. "Just go back to Vegas. Leave me alone." Phil got up and walked away. Good. I deserved to be alone. I didn't move, just stared out at the ocean, slowly falling asleep to the sounds of the ocean hitting the cliffs below. Somewhere in there, I dreamed. I angled the brush to paint the ebbs and flows of the ocean. I used the smallest amounts of color to capture the subtle nuances and made the canvas breathe. "That's him," Phil said. "He's the artist that painted it, and he is a lot better than me. Ask him." I woke and turned around. A man about 70 walked with Phil down the path from the 2-story stone house. Phil was carrying my picture of the lighthouse of Cape Sodhurst. "Mark, I want to present the owner of the Cape Sodhurst Lighthouse Bed and Breakfast," Phil said. "He wants to talk to you about a job." I nodded, but didn't get up. The elderly man came up to me, smiling one of the biggest grins I had ever seen, and pointed at my painting. "You have captured the spirit of Cape Sodhurst. Look at those clouds. Look at the ocean. Look at the detail. Even my wife can't believe somebody so talented painted our little lighthouse. She says she can hear the ocean and the seabirds crying. It's like you captured the sky in your picture." Thank you," I said. "We'd like to buy it and place it above our mantel, and during dinner I'd like to discuss 3 more paintings, all of the lighthouse, but at different times of day or season, one to hang in each of our guest rooms. Would $5,000 and 2 weeks free stay cover it? My wife is an incredible cook," he said. "Phil, what is this?" I asked. It sounds like a commission to me. An artist commission, Phil said, giving me that flirting smile. Good thing I brought your paints. They're upstairs. Phil never told us any details, but he said that when you arrived, you needed time to get over something that had happened back in Vegas. Well, that's the best part about Cape Sawdust. It's a good place to give your soul some breathing room. Dinner's in an hour. We'll talk about the commission then, and if you want to talk about what had happened, we're pretty good at listening, the old man said, and left us alone. Phil, after what happened in Vegas, I can't paint anymore, I said. It sounds like you need a little bit of practice, Phil said, taking the seat to my right. We have an hour until dinner. Paint me. Live. We won't be disturbed, and after dinner, I get to paint you. That will give us a chance to talk. Phil, I'm not an artist anymore. Maybe I never was, I yelled. I know different, and so does everybody else, Phil said, taking my hand. The dean wants you to call him. It seems he needs a teacher to teach oil painting for the night program for fall semester. It's a different clientele. Housewives who need a night away from their kids, guys working 2 jobs and want to improve themselves, girls that got pregnant and need to get away from regular school, people that don't fit in with the regular program for some reason, even some people who dropped out of high school and need to make up credits for their GED. It's kind of an alternative high school and a college rolled into one. They're not focused on the same things as the people who come during the day. They need someone who will take the time to care. Can you think of anyone? How about you? I've made too many mistakes, and I don't have a master's, I said. None of it was a mistake, because it brought us together, Phil said. I can't paint anymore, Phil. That day destroyed me, I said. I should have told you this first. You should have heard Dr. Eaton yell. I think the whole campus did. That's one woman I'm glad isn't mad at me. She stood up to the dean for you, and I think Brandon even learned a few swear words. Because of her, the dean reconsidered the situation. The ethics committee was called, but not on you, on Misha. Dr. Eaton told me before she left that if the university did anything to punish us, you in particular, the victim of a cybercrime, the negative publicity would make the university look bad and open them up to potential lawsuits that they couldn't win. They'd be out millions. The dean called me into his office, and he told me that when I heard from you to tell you about the job, and he gave me this, Phil said, and pulled a manila paper from behind the painting. He handed me my Master's of Fine Arts diploma. Congratulations, sexy. Are you ready to paint me now? Because if you're not, I'm painting you. A little later, I said. Phil gave me a gentle smile. I know what you need. Come here. He wrapped an arm around my shoulders and let me snuggle into him. Though the sun set behind us, its dying rays changed the whole sky into gold. We sat together, watching the soft and gentle clouds and the rhythmic flow of the oceans blend with the golden apricot light of the setting sun. It looks just like your paintings. It's beautiful. You're beautiful, Phil whispered, and kissed my forehead. He pulled me a little closer, lifted my hand, and kissed it. I've never stopped being proud of you, or loving you. A part of my soul opened up. After dinner, I'd paint Phil, but behind him would be this incredible sky. I already knew what paints I'd use. The end. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Peace.